Hey yo, what is going on guys? Cash and Clean here, and for today's video I just wanted to talk about what you can do as a returning player for Trove, because there is a lot of content added depending on how long it's been since you last played. Now I'm just going to briefly go over some of these things that are important to you guys. I'm not going to go too in depth into everything. If you have a question you can either drop it down in the comments, or you can refer to my previous videos because I have guides for everything that I will talk about on here. And to start things off, I highly recommend just going through all of your quest lines, because not only will you have like a basic idea of what to do, because you guys are going to know what I'm talking about, that's the first thing, and it's just going to introduce you to what they actually added in Trove. So I'm just going to go way back a little bit and then kind of advance forward. So if you're trying to get your weeklies done with shadow towers, there's no more shadow towers. Well, there are shadow towers, but they completely destroyed it. There's no more of that. You're mainly just going to use shadow towers to get your badges done. So if you go to badges, gameplay badges, you'll have the dreadnought one over here and the Hydrokin. And as for getting your weeklies done, basically you're going to want to do something called delves. And if you go over here to this area, this is the delve area. So we have the public delve, we have a challenge delve, and we have a private delve. Now I do have videos talking about delves, so like I said, you can refer to those videos, but basically what you want to do is get a delve portal. But what you want to do is just put down a delve portal. So I don't even know what, I think this is my private portals. And depending on your light, you're going to want to go to a depth that you can do comfortably. If you're completely unsure, you can go to depth 20 and just one-shot everything. Because after depth 20, that's when shadowy vaults begin to spawn. And every third shadowy vault, you're going to use these delve keys to open the shadowy vault. And you'll have to do that 6 times to get all of your weeklies. And you can do this on any day. It doesn't have to be on Monday like it was with shadow towers. Like I said, I'm just going to briefly go over things. So if you do have questions, feel free to drop it down in the comments or just refer to my previous videos. Something else that I do want to talk about is, apart from my mods, apart from my UI looking a little bit different, it's basically just going to be the same thing. You can also just refer to my mods video if you want to get the ones that I have. But I do want to talk about mastery because there's a few different things here. So if we go to the mastery tab, as you can see, we have something called Geode. And before we get into Geode, I do want to mention that if you go past 500 Trove mastery, you won't be getting the damage, the health, and the +4 power rank. You just get +1 power rank and +1 magic find. So going past 500 Trove mastery is pretty useless unless you're trying to go for max power rank or just rank 1 mastery. But once you get to 500, you're basically an endgame player. And then for Geode mastery, this is pretty important that you do get to 100 because you get light. And if you don't know what Geode is, like I said, I recommend doing the quest lines, but there's going to be a new area down here in the Atlas. We have the Geode Sanctuary. You're going to get all of your Geode stuff done there because they have their own specific caves. And you're going to have a lot of things to do in there. Now, don't get these confused with delves because delves are similar, but they're a little bit different in terms of what you're trying to get. Although the cool thing about delves is that if they do have a resource that you do need in there for Geode, you can just farm them in delves. So like crystals, for example, or different types of ore, all the plants and stuff like that. And then going over here to Geode top side, we have different Ubers. This is where you can farm crystal gear. And if you didn't know, we don't have stellar gear anymore. If you have high enough magic find, you'll just get stellar gear as a drop. And crystal gear is pretty accessible to basically everybody. All you have to do is hit 5000 power rank to unlock Uber 8. And getting to 5000 power rank isn't really too bad as long as you're following your expertise gem quest line. It'll give you stellar gems, some radiant and power gems. And if you know what you're doing, you can easily get up to 15 to 20k power rank. But anyway, if you go over to Uber 8, if you do some dungeons there, you'll have a chance of dropping Crystal 1 gear. That's the highest tier that you can possibly get. And then U9, you have a chance of getting up to Crystal 2. And then for U10, it's up to Crystal 3. And then U11 is a little bit weird because you can get up to Crystal 5 because 5 is currently the highest that you can get. But you have to do 5-star dungeons. And that's the only place that you can get them. And the drop rates are pretty terrible. And if you don't know what a 5-star dungeon is, it's basically a 3-star dungeon, but just add 2 more dungeons. So you're basically just doing 5 dungeons in one. And I already have a bunch of different methods of how to farm Crystal 5 gear, as well as Crystal 4 gear, but we have these things over here called Gear Crafters Vaults. So as you're casually farming, doing your thing, you'll get a bunch of these boxes. Now at the moment, I'm pretty sure you get 2 no matter where you are. I think from Uber 2 and up. Technically, you're supposed to get the guaranteed 2 at from Uber 9 and higher, but I have no idea when they're going to change that or if they're going to change that. So what I've heard from people is that they farm in U6. There's a bunch of world bosses, bunch of dungeons that you can do there. Make sure you're collecting the gear and loot collecting it, because if we go over to the loot collector, we have this new resource over here called block elements. These are untradeable, but you will need these for something else that is going to be over here. If we go over to this bench here, we can actually craft crystal gear, which is going to be down here, but let's not worry about that right now. We basically have this profession here, and you want to get to level 250. So what you want to do is craft 50 things to unlock this tier over here, and then another 50 from here to unlock the next one. Just know that you can't go back from here to unlock the higher stuff down here. You just have to kind of go in order, crafting 50 from each to unlock the next one. And eventually, once you get to 250, it's gonna be a little bit easier for you guys to actually get Crystal 4 gear, because getting to Crystal 5 is gonna be a little bit tricky. I'll show you how to get Crystal 4, and then eventually you'll be able to get to Crystal 5. I go over all of this in my power rank guide, so I highly recommend checking out that if you end up getting stuck or if you're just not sure what to do. And once you're level 250 in that profession, all you need is a 20k PR class, and you can start opening up these for a chance of getting Crystal 4. The higher PR you are, the better, because if you're at 25k, you'll have a higher chance of getting a Crystal 4. If you're at 30k, then you're basically just going to get Crystal 4s. I don't even know if it's possible to get a Crystal 3 for 30k power rank, but it might be. Just know that if you're at 20k power rank, you're mostly just going to get Crystal 3, but there is a chance that you can get Crystal 4. And just make sure you're opening them on the correct classes, and whatever you don't need, you can end up loot collecting for more cores, because the crystalline cores you're going to end up needing to forge up your gear. But as long as you're farming up the boxes, it's not going to be too bad. I do have guides for how to get a bunch of these boxes. So that's what I wanted to talk about with the gear stuff. I'm just going to move on to the ring stuff. If I go too in depth into everything, it's just going to be like a 4-hour long video, so I'd rather not do that to you guys. So here we got the ring crafting bench. They did add a separate tier down here if you guys are returning from a super long time. Now we have this down here for crystal rings. So these are going to be for Crystal 1, and then at some point you can get some for Crystal 2. It even says at the bottom guaranteed to be Crystal 2 or better, and you go all the way down to Crystal 3 or better. Now I can't really remember the exact stats for obtaining a Crystal 4, but basically the more of these that you craft, so let's just say we have 10 Crystal 3 boxes crafted, there's a chance that it can drop you a guaranteed Crystal 4 ring box on top of the stuff that you already crafted. And this can happen with Crystal 1 all the way to Crystal 3. I just can't remember the exact drop rates for those. And if you end up getting stuff that you don't need from here, you can end up selling it on the marketplace, and you can actually make some pretty good flux from selling these things, specifically the Crystal 3 box. And while we're on the topic of this, you probably already noticed by now, but my level is 137. So what this means is that once you're past the original level 30, that's when you have your character max, that's when you have all of the gem spots unlocked. By the way, cosmic gems, that's going to be all the stuff that you would get in Geode topside. I do have a bunch of gem videos, so you can refer to those. But I want to quickly go over the Paragon levels. So like I said, once you get to level 30, your levels reset back to level 1. So every prime numbered level that you get these pinatas. And for every level that you get Trovian loops. And what you do with those loops is you bring them to this table over here. And for these primal loops, basically, so I'm on Boomeranger for example, you're going to get these cubes, and basically as you open one, that's how you get the primal loop. So this is for Boomeranger. And the other thing that you will need the Trovian loops for is this bench over here. There's a bunch of mastery items, but there are a couple important ones. So we have these allies over here. So we have 400 light. I'm going to go over my current one a little bit later, but basically you're going to want to go for these three specifically. This one maybe not so much, because this one doesn't really give you movement speed. Ideally you want movement speed. We're going to go over the star chart in just a bit where you do get the movement speed one. But while you wait to get that ally, you could go for this one as an alternative. And if you're curious, this level thing goes all the way up to 1000 and then resets back to level 1. I think you get like a prestige icon like in Call of Duty or something like that. Not like a complete icon change or anything, but I think you might have some kind of indicator for reaching level 1000. I'm actually not too sure about that. And before I get into the star chart stuff, because that stuff is pretty important, I do want to go over crystal gems. So if you are returning from a long time ago, we used to have stellar gems that would go to level 25 and that would be the max. Instead we have crystal gems and they go to level 30. Now for crystal gems, there's a few different ways of obtaining it. So if you are able to go to U11 in any of these elemental worlds, you can get some of the boxes there and you can go for crystals that way. The other way, which you probably will have to do for your empower gems at least, is you go over to the gems tab and you're going to want to get these crystal gem converters. Now it's going to be a lot of qubits, and qubits are going to be pretty annoying because you're going to need a lot of those for the star chart that I'm about to talk about. But ideally you want to use these specifically on your cosmic gems, because this will give you more light, because you're going to end up getting your stellar to crystal and then from level 25 to 30. So ideally you want to do the empower gem first, and then you could go for the lessers, but realistically you probably want to go for the empower gems in general, because getting empower gem crystal gems are kind of a nightmare. Your clash gem is pretty doable to get crystal if you have a bunch of those, but if you don't, then you may as well just use these converters on the empower gems. Now there's a few more things that I do want to talk about, so let's just get straight over to the star chart area. So it's going to be up on the top here in the hub. You're going to have your own quest line to go with it, but we have the merchant over here and we have the Grand Orrery here. So I don't really recommend following the exact path that I took, but the main thing that you do want to get from here is this ally over here, the Scorpius. There are other mastery items, but the Scorpius one is going to be the one you want to get for physical damage characters, because that will give you the movement speed that the other allies do. And just a little tip for these, because you will need astral echoes, there's a little star merchant here that you can talk to, and if you do have despoiled divinities to spare, you can get 5 of these a day. Although when it comes to astral echoes, I would recommend getting the tome, which you can find over here in the store, but there isn't really much to do with astral echoes once you're done with them. The tome does help out a lot, but I do so many ships that I don't really know what to do with my extra astral echoes. So if you do want to farm these naturally without the tome, you can go ahead and do that, although I guess the tome is mastery, so it's not going to give you a lot of mastery, but at least it's something. And if we go over here to the Moors tab, there will be a section for the astral echoes as well as the constellation keys. This will just basically make it so you can restart the entire thing and you get all of your spheres back. And for whatever reason, if you're stuck in any of the quest lines or if you don't get a sphere back, you would have to submit a ticket to Game & Go support, and you're gonna have to work that out with them. All right, a few more things that I do want to talk about. We're almost getting there to the end. So we have this area over here that's basically completely useless apart from one thing where it's kind of useless but not really. We have this profession over here that you can end up maxing out, and the nice thing about this is that you can get the 2% light from basically any of these. So as long as you're crafting the one that you want, I guess. I've never personally crafted any of these, but I guess if you do need the very extra bit of light to get to, I guess, the next Uber or whatever the case may be, then maybe the 2% can help you out. But apart from that, this place is pretty useless. And then going from that place, we have this underground area down here where you can find Luxion up here at the top, and then there's going to be corruxion, which will be down here. So they rotate every other Friday. Corruxion will have their own dragon just like Luxion does, as well as other resources. So if you have a bunch of chaos cores, you'll be able to get lustrous gem boxes, double XP potions, whatever you may need. You can only craft up to 10 things in there though, whereas Luxion you can get unlimited if you have the dragon coins. And over here we have Fluxion. So basically if you're missing a Luxion item, you're most likely just going to find it in here. You can just kind of use the scroll thing, and you can vote for the item that you really need. And there's kind of like a ton of things in here, and I think it's on rotation. I don't think it has like every single item in the game, but there's a bunch of things that you can get in here. Now don't get this confused with obtaining it. This is just for voting, and it looks like this is just the order of the votes, and then it resets. And this is just from past events, past Luxion items, things like that. And as you can see, it tells you the hours remaining, tells you a little guide up here. And 2 other merchants in here. We have this guy over here. This guy's basically a scam. He has bombs over here as well as a pole, which I guess you'll need for mastery, but these are basically just bombs with VFX. Nothing too special about them apart from the VFX. And then we have the pink heartophones. So instead of the usual red name, this is a pink name, and these last for 12 hours if I'm not mistaken. And then over here we have the curiosity stuff. So this is just going to be on rotation with just a bunch of random mastery items. So if you ever need mastery, you can come to him if you have credits or cubits laying around, but if you don't care about that stuff, then don't worry about them. All right, over there we got Bomber Royale season 3, or is it season 2 or 3? I think it's 3. I don't know. Either way, on PC there's a bunch of bots in there. On console, good luck finding a game, I guess. Anyway, let's go down over here to the fishing area / mana stuff. Now the mana is basically completely useless from what I'm aware. It does give you certain buffs, so each thing has like their own little buff. Like who wouldn't want this buff right here? Periodically reveals nearby NPCs through walls. Like if you're ever stuck trying to find NPCs, then I guess there you go. That's gonna show it to you right there. Just gotta complete the profession though. And then we got this bench over here, bunch of potions. Basically this is just for mastery, and it also just has additional effects that you can get. And then here we have some mastery items. Ideally you want to get this tome, and if you're going for like a max coefficient build, then you'd probably want to go for one of these allies here, but almost everything in this game is just going to require a lot of light, so you're going to want to go for light. And then they also changed up the fishing stuff. So basically we have this guy over here. There's going to be a bunch of fishing pools, and if you're on PC, luckily there's a mod to help you find these fishing pools. And if you're on console, it's gonna be a little bit tricky, but basically we're gonna have a bunch of these fishing orders, and you get that from this guy over here, and he's not gonna appear until you do the quest line, so do the quest line. And we have this stuff over here in the Pond of Power. So just like the star chart, this isn't going to give you like a bunch of buffs, mainly just things to help you with like general things. There's some mastery items. This is just decreasing damage in lava if you're just standing in it. There's like some boat stuff, so like acceleration. I think there's some for turning speed, right there, turning rate. You can get some more marks of the angler, but it doesn't really do a whole lot. And then this is like for the fishing food. Ideally, you do want to make it all the way up to the premium canned fish, because that's where you get the 400 light food, which is going to be up over here. And as far as I'm aware, these things are tradable, but for whatever reason, the free range is not tradable, and all of the fish stuff for that is going to be in the angler's grill. So as you can see, I can craft the premium stuff. So 400 light as well as some other buffs. We have the physical damage, we have the magic damage, and then we have just like utility, I guess, but I don't really think you're going to need that one. And then here we have like a little donation station for this, but you have to have these unlocked. If you don't have it unlocked in the Pond of Power, then everything down here is just going to be blank. And then just a little sneaky guy that's over here. You can check in with him every day because sometimes he has different things. You just need turtle shells. And I think that's the main stuff that I did want to talk about. We have a bunch of characters here. At the moment, this is the max power rank, but in the future, if you're watching this won't be the max power rank, and maybe in the future there's going to be extra classes, maybe something completely brand new, who knows. And that's everything that I did want to talk about in this video, and if there's something else that I missed that you guys think is very important, you can drop it down in the comments down below. I'm sure it's going to help out anyone else that's also a returning player. But I felt like if I talked about every single little detail, this video is going to be super long. I also didn't want to go too in depth into that many things. Like there was a bunch of reworks and class buffs slash nerfs that happened. Boomerranger being pretty good, Shadowhunter's pretty good, but I'm not going to get into all of that stuff. If you have enjoyed the video, please drop a like, it helps out the channel a ton. Subscribe if you're new or if you find yourself coming back. And on that note, thank you all so much for listening, watching, viewing, and subscribing, and I will talk to you all later.